Welcome to the best away game ever commentary live from Keenan Stadium. I am Josh Kleinard. We are with Brandon Moore of the Daily Tar Heel Sports Editor. I'll introduce you to our panel. We have Aaron Dodson, David Coggins, Jonathan Unger, Susanna Davidson, and last but not least, Abby Bouchon. Let's get rolling. Brandon, what are your thoughts on this weekend? Or Thursday night?
I've been questioning for a long time exactly what this team has left to play for, and I think if there's still something to play for, we'll find out on Thursday night. A little disappointed, obviously, in the defensive effort on Saturday, but hopefully we'll see something different Thursday night. Obviously, Virginia coming off a big win, too, so nothing better than primetime ACC football.
So, speaking of the motivation, do you know of anything that Coach Fedora is doing this week? Because I know he's pretty famous for, pulling stunts like painting the locker room, things like that.
Not specifically. I know he likes to prepare and practice pretty much the same way every week. I think that's the way he likes to go about it. I haven't heard of him painting the locker room orange or anything like he did for NC State, but it is technically the South Soldus rivalry, so they should be motivated.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that, about the South Soldus rivalry? I know there was a curse at one point, the Charlottesville curse. Do you think that still exists? We won in 2010, but how does that factor into everything? And do you think Fedora will bring that up with the players?
The thing about college football and college sports in general with streaks of that nature that, you're only going to be there for 4 years. So if a team 5 years ago lost, that's not something that even comes into your frame of mind. There is something to, making the same trip every other year and not having any success. But like you said, winning just a couple of years ago, these guys, the guys that are old enough have tasted victory in Charlottesville, so I don't imagine that would be too big of an issue. It is a rivalry game, and it has a title, but I think we can all agree that it's no NC State game, or even a Duke game for that matter.
Well, actually, you brought up the NC State game. Let's talk about the highlight of the season, Giovanni Bernard and his famous touchdown. What were your thoughts on that as you watched it happen, getting to write up on it afterwards? Were you on the field at that time, or were you following up on it?
I was in the press box when that happened.
Awesome.
Normally, I like to be on the field for the last 5 minutes of the game if I'm there, but I just got so caught up in trying to take notes and trying to tweet about what was going on that I didn't really have time to get out on the field. It's kind of an unspoken rule that there's just no cheering in press boxes, but I didn't cheer personally, but at that time I've never heard a louder press box. It's just an unbelievable, if there's such thing as a walk-off in football, that was it. Just one of the, if not the greatest football moment of my career here at UNC, definitely top 10. Also, one of the best football moments in UNC history. I think that's, it's a rivalry game. It ended a streak. It was the most dramatic ending to a football game I think I've ever seen. So,
safe to say that's probably one of the top 10 moments of my college career for sure.
I remember walking as we were leaving, going towards the press conference. People just taking their shirts off, people crying, just so excited. I don't know. I've never seen tears of joy at a football game like that. But that's really what was going on.
Especially ACC football.
Yeah.
Brandon, speaking of being in the press box, can you just talk to us about your experience covering away football games? I know you went to Miami earlier in the year. How was that?
Being in Miami was a lot of fun. Like I said, I like to be on the field for the last 5 minutes because that's usually when they allow print media access to the field. So I got to go out on the field there. It's certainly a different atmosphere in Miami than it is at UNC, and I imagine as well it will be certainly different at UVA. I don't know exactly how to quantify what those differences might be. I think they're a little louder and maybe even a little drunker. I think that's But then again, if I was in South Florida all the time, I'd probably stay drunk too.
Well, Brandon, one thing I was kind of curious about is during this weekend of basketball and football, we also had women's field hockey winning some major games here as they progress onto the Sweet 16. And as a sports editor, how do you balance covering such a variety of sports and celebrating all of the team's successes at Carolina?
I'm glad you brought that up because this was actually our biggest weekend so far in terms of just different sports. We're in this very peculiar time of the year where fall sports haven't quite ended yet and winter sports are starting to take over. And UNC is a traditional power in a lot of those fall sports. You mentioned field hockey, who's probably the odds-on favorite to take the national championship this year. Also, the women's soccer team, traditional power, not having their best season this year, but they made it to the second round of the NCAA tournament. And the men's soccer team as well, they lost in the final of the ACC championship this weekend, but defending national champions. It's hard to balance that, especially when you have so many programs that are so talented and so often competitive. And at the same time, you have to understand that, at UNC, basketball is king. And if something happens with the men's basketball team, you need to be there and they need to be represented in our newspaper. But at the same time, we like to give field hockey their due. To have a program like that, they certainly they earn their spot for recognition.
Absolutely.
Hey, Brandon. So for this event, we've been using Google Hangout to try to interview different players, coaches, just get a different media perspective that everyone doesn't have access to. What do you see the future of sports journalism? What do you see yourself doing in maybe 10 years from now? Are you going to be writing for an actual black and white hard copy print publication? Or do you think you'll be more social media involved?
That's a good question. This is actually my first Google Hangout. So hey, Google Hangouts, I like this a lot. I like the format. I will say that the onset of social media, Facebook and Twitter especially, have really changed the way that sports reporting takes place. Sometimes you'll be perusing the internet and you'll find a story that doesn't actually have any sources in it. They didn't interview anybody, but everything they got came from Twitter. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I think there's a lot to be said for traditional means of reporting and news gathering. But at the same time, I understand the value of Twitter and other forms of social media when it comes to sports journalism. Oftentimes people will say that the newspaper industry is dying, and that's understandable. But the thing about sports journalism is, and whether I do intend to pursue it in some manner, sports are always going to happen, and people are always going to want to read about them. So there may not be a venue in print for sports journalism, but sports journalism isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, actually, speaking a little bit what you're talking about, one of the reasons we're using Google Plus is because we think this is such a cool way to promote camaraderie and, cheering on our Tar Heels, even though they're away at UVA on Thursday night. And that's what we want to use this for, to collect interviews, collect pictures and experiences, and kind of create a centerpiece on the internet for where folks are talking about this. And we're really excited to be using this technology and kind of utilizing something that no one's really done before like this.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, like I said, it's my first time. So, I hope it gives you what you're looking for.
Yeah, no, you're awesome.
So, did you have a Google Plus before this?
I did have a Google Plus. In fact, I got it when it was still in that trial phase, when you had to ask someone to invite you, and then I haven't used it since. So,
yeah.
Well, we're glad you're back on board.
Hopefully, this will change that.
Okay, so what are the final predictions for Thursday?
Do I have to go can I go last?
We're gonna save our predictions, Brandon. We want yours.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to go first. All right. Well, like I said, I hate to do this because, first of all, I'll just preface that by saying, at the Daily Tar Heel, we like to, put away our allegiance while we're covering games. And I call a lot of flack for picking NC State to win a couple weeks ago, but I went with my gut, and I felt like that at the time that was the right pick to make. So, in all objectiveness, I question their motivation at this point, and it's easy to say that because now they had an extra week to prepare for Georgia Tech, and the defense still didn't show up. If we see the same effort that we saw out of the Georgia Tech game, Virginia will beat this North Carolina team. If North Carolina plays the way they did against NC State, North Carolina will run away with it. But it'll be a close game. The fact that it's on Thursday night, I think, is advantageous to North Carolina. If they're looking for something to motivate them, being on TV, prime time, middle of the week, that's exactly what they need. Yeah. Talent-wise, they're the better team. It just depends on whether they show up or not. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they do. I think Carolina wins it 45-38.
Ooh, high scoring.
Who's going to be the X Factor, Brandon?
Gio Bernard every night, all day.
Every time. Is there anybody on Virginia that we have to watch out for?
To be completely honest, I'm not 100% familiar with their roster. I know that they've been working with the same quarterback now for a couple of years, and what he's been able to do there has been impressive. Obviously, I think the thing to take away from Virginia, especially coming into this game, is the fact that they're coming off an emotional comeback win against Miami. They're going to be motivated just as much, if not more, than Carolina is. If there's an X factor for them, it's just going to be their stick-to-itiveness. I know that's not a word, but their resiliency and their ability to fight through adversity. And that's one of the things that North Carolina has kind of harped on this year. In fact, after every game, Gio will undoubtedly say, we just wanted to fight through the adversity out there. But when it comes to adversity, you can't deny that Virginia made an excellent show last weekend against Miami.
Yeah.
Great.
Brandon, I know our university's really been embroiled in a lot of scandals with the football team. Do you think that Fedora has a large presence in maybe changing of how that interaction goes between the sports and academics with the football team?
I think the most important role that Fedora plays in that whole situation is just a new face. What he represents is a change of guard, something that the football program definitely needed. I know there was a lot of contention about the firing of Coach Davis 2 years ago, and there was a lot of questioning about what to do with Coach Everett Withers last year. But what the program needed was a fresh start, and I think Fedora offers that. What he does academically, I can't speak to that so much. I know that those guys are expected to do, a certain amount of tutoring per week, and they have to be in the study hall. But I'm not sure that the amount of time that they have to do that has changed under Fedora. I certainly know there's a new expectation as compared to under Coach Davis and under Withers. The team themselves know that they're certainly under a lot more scrutiny than they were 2 years ago. So, like I said, when it comes to what Fedora represents, I think he just represents a new face. He's a change.
Absolutely.
I know this is less serious than what you just talked about, Brandon, but you got to share the story to everybody about Caleb Presley, how he hit you up, man. You got to tell them.
Caleb Presley is easily one of my favorite football players right now. He's from the Asheville area, and we had a writer that knew him. And if you don't know about Caleb Presley, you should check out his website, calebpresley.com. I don't normally plug people like that, but this dude is just hilarious. He likes to have scooter races with his scooter that he named Buddy Blackjack. And just a hilarious guy. But when he did the interview with one of my writers for a story we did, she gave him my phone number, and I was actually I was out at a bar at the time, and I got this text message. It's like Crib Calls, which is the other name of his website. Front Pack. Like, what? Who is this? He's like, this is Caleb Presley. I was like, oh, all right. He's like, this should be on the front page. And the headline should say, Caleb Presley comes out on top in sex life. Needless to say, we didn't do that, but we did get a nice picture of his scooter in the newspaper. I think he was really pleased with that.
Great.
And then I guess just like to end, Brandon, can you like tell us a story, like a funny experience you had talking to Coach Fedora, or any other player in like a press conference you had with him this season?
That's a good question. I know I just remember. Let's see. It was the Elon game. It was the first game of the year, and we were still kind of feeling out Fedora. We had seen him obviously in preseason stuff and going to practices, and I'd probably seen him 5 or 6 times and had the chance to ask him a few questions. But we were still kind of trying to figure him out, and this is not a joke. He walked into the press conference chugging a Red Bull, like finishing the Red Bull, one hand, tossed it in the trash can. It was like, all right, here we go. And I think that really encapsulates, exactly what he's like. That's his personality to a T.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Sweet.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. Hey, are you going to be at the game Thursday at UVA?
I will not. We're sending 2 writers and a photographer, but I'm going to have to hold down the fort here in Chapel Hill and make sure we get the newspaper out on time. I will be doing some soccer coverage this weekend, though.
Awesome.
Great.
We'll come out to our best away game ever, Thursday at 7 at Back Bar.
All right. Best of luck to it.
Great.
All right.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Brandon.
guys.
Bye, Brandon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.